Hey everyone, it's Justin Adkins here from Just a Note by Justin, and today on the Scrapbook.com YouTube channel, we're going to be baking up a super sweet birthday card with some awesome products from Pretty Pink Posh. We're going to be using the big birthday cupcake die set to create the focal image of this card. I'm going to be using a bunch of the different images that are included in this die set to make this cupcake really look extra sweet. We'll also be using the birthday word stencil as a portion of our background, and that's really going to add some fun detail. To start creating the card, we are going to pull out the big birthday cupcake die set and the Sunshine Smooth cardstock. I'm grabbing it in an A2 sized pad, and I'm going to die cut the cupcake wrapper from the provided blue paper in the Sunshine Smooth cardstock. I do like to go ahead and tack it down with some mint tape. Mint tape is always my go-to. And then I'm going to use some pink paper from the Sunshine Smooth cardstock for the top of our cupcake. I'm going to use the yellow cardstock for the bow of the cupcake. I'm also going to use some white mixed media paper as well. As you can see, I've already gotten the bulk of the frosting of the cupcake on top. I've also grabbed the Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle frames that I am going to go ahead and die cut around that, trying to maximize my paper the best that I possibly can. Now I do end up rearranging my dies on my white paper, and I put the cake die, the actual cupcake itself, onto the panel to fit inside the frame. I put the banner onto the pink cardstock that we had used, and then I grabbed the mixed metals glitter paper. I have a scrap of silver, and I'm going to use the confetti sprinkles mini die that's included with this set. This is just going to add a little bit of embellishment to the top of our cupcake once we're done. And who doesn't like a little glittery sparkle once the card is completed? I know I'd love that on my cupcake. What I like to do is trim down all of my paper that I'm going to be die cutting. That way I can fit more in my die cutting sandwich and make less passes through my die cutting machine. So I grabbed my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine in black, only at Scrapbook.com, and processed through my dies. Now I do have a stack and sort tray in frost ready to catch all of these die cut images. I love the Scrapbook.com stack and sort trays as they really allow me to stay organized while I'm creating any sort of project. I don't even want to fully disclose how many are always sitting at my desk, but I have healthy stacks of both the smaller and the larger sizes. Now I do go ahead and decide to die cut out my sentiment banner in white from mixed media cardstock instead of the pink, but don't worry, we're going to be using that pink banner that I die cut as well. So I grabbed the Celebrate Sentiment word die from the big birthday cupcake die set, and I'm gonna die cut this from the pink die cut that we already have. This is going to form as a stencil so that all of my letters get placed properly, and I'll die cut that off camera. Since my white banner is already die cut, I will use some Lost Shadow Distress Oxide ink to go ahead and distress the edges. This will just add a nice little variance of color and not make it so stark white on the edges. I'm going to use that stencil for the letters that we talked about a couple seconds ago. I'm going to use some mint tape to hold it into place onto that white banner. And then once everything is ready to go, since I have my letters die cut already, I will be able to use my Misty Precision glue press to adhere each of the letters for Celebrate onto that white panel. Now I do heavily speed up the video for this portion just as you don't need to see me carefully putting each of these letters into place, but my tips and tricks are use tweezers. It helps you get those letters into those small crevices, and then just when it gets to the portion that you have to remove that pink die cut stencil, I recommend doing so nice and slowly, as that way it will make sure that everything comes off nice and clean and you don't have any sort of stragglers. Now that I've got the sentiment onto my banner, I'm going to adhere the little tails of the banner behind it as well. I love when sentiment banners come with these little tails. They're super cute. They add that nice little detail to your card, and then when you combine it with some ink blending for some shadow, it really helps give that sort of three-dimensional look to something that's quite flat. So I'm getting my sentiment banner all together, and we'll adhere that later. Using some distress ink and starting with peacock feathers, I'm going to distress the edges of my cupcake wrapper portion. I'm just going to do the sides and the bottom of the cupcake wrapper. I don't really feel like I need to do the top of it yet. I think that it'll be nice to have some highlight on the top, so I'm going to just use my mini foam blender and get that all situated. For my pink frosting die cut, I've gone ahead with picked raspberry distress ink to distress just the bottom. That way it's lighter on the top and gets darker towards the bottom of the die cut. After the picked raspberry die, we'll go ahead and use some mustard seed distress ink, and I'm going to use my tweezers to get that little center of the tie of the bow, and we will adhere that down with my Misty Precision Glue Press. The next portion that will go ahead and ink blend is going to be the main frosting area, and I'm doing that with dried marigold distress oxide. This is going to help keep this color nice and light just by ink blending lightly with my mini foam blending tool, and I just love that dried marigold color, especially with the pink frosting. For the actual cake portion, I always prefer a vanilla cupcake, so I'm using some tea dye onto that die cut. Now let's go ahead and start working on our background. I'm going to be doing a diagonal pattern, and I'm going to start with some Kitsch Flamingo Distress Oxide ink in the top left corner. And I'm just sort of blending it just to get a nice sort of top corner blended out. And once the Distress Oxide for the Kitsch Flamingo is done, we're going to move on to dried marigold, same color that we used for that one frosting die cut as well. Now I'm going back and forth. I'm going to use some Kitsch Flamingo to help sort of blend that gap together and make sure that my blend is nice and seamless. We're going to use some squeezed lemonade distress oxide as well as our third color and blend that into the dried marigold. Of course, we're operating with the color wheel right now, so yellows blend very nicely into oranges, and it's going to blend really nice. The final color we're using is Salvage Patina Distress Oxide, and this kind of cheats a little bit because we're going to be creating a green by blending it into that squeezed lemonade. Use the color wheel as your friend. You'll know what colors will blend nicely, so we should expect that when we blend a yellow and a blue together, we should get some form of a green. And since we're using with lighter colors, it's a nice little pastel green, and I welcome that to our card. Using my distress sprayer nozzle, I do splatter some water onto my panel, and using a clean microfiber towel, now don't believe me or not, it is clean, you won't see any residue. That microfiber towel does pick up that water and leave me with some really nice white bleach marks on my project. Ooh, it's looking super pretty, and we're making a beautiful background. We're going to incorporate the birthday words stencil from Pretty Pink Posh, and I make a little bit of a mistake, but it's very easily correctable. As you're going to see when I flip the stencil over, I have my blue section in the top left, and I wanted it to be my pink section, so I can just easily remove the back from the panel and flip the stencil around. We're going to be using distress inks and starting with picked raspberry, same color that we used towards the top of that last pink die cut that we used for the frosting. And we're going to blend these on top of the stencil. We're going to then move on to carved pumpkin. The yellow portion is going to be mustard seed, and the final portion is going to be peacock feathers. Now I'm talking a little bit ahead because I did want to explain why I'm using distress inks and not oxides, since that's what's underneath on the panel. I have found that with my crafting experience and journey that you can use distress inks on top of oxides and they stand out really nicely. They're a little bit darker, you get a little bit more of a deeper impression with them, and the only thing I recommend is not using the same ink blending tools that you used with your oxide. You will cross-contaminate as there's different materials. You'll see with this peel reveal that we get a really nice dark blend with that stencil, and it makes those words really stand out. I'm going to pull in one of my absolutely favorite products, and that is the Paper Splatter watercolor from Picket Fence Studio. This is liquid white snowflake. It's going to add some really nice splatters that'll give some nice glitter to our project. I like to water it down a little bit, and then I do like to use a clean brush to go ahead and splatter all over my project. I have this liquid watercolor splatter in so many different colors. I do think that the white and the gold are my favorite because they get the most use, but I've got them. Oh, there's so many pretty colors. This is definitely something you're going to want to add to your wish list for a future shopping trip. I've got my heat tool and I'm just making sure all of that liquid watercolor splatter has set nicely, and that way I'm not going to be getting any of those smudges on my card. I'm trying to think ahead and not have any sort of issues with that. After everything is dry with my die cuts and my background panel, we can move on to putting our cupcake together. Once again, I'm using my Misty Precision Glue Press to put all of my little pieces together. I adore this tool. It is one of the best investments I have made into my craft space in a long time. I use it with every single project. So we're going to put each of those elements together to create our cupcake. If you haven't noticed already, all of the colors of this cupcake are present in the background that we used. I like to color coordinate like that when I do my crafting, so I just adore how all of these do work together to give you that really pretty sort of birthday color scheme. We've got our sentiment banner on, and now what I want to do next is trim down our main panel. I'm taking our ink blended background and I'm going to trim it down so that it's about 4 1/8 inch by 5 3/8 of an inch. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to get a really nice white border when I adhere it to my card base. So as you'll see, I put it nicely into place. I'm just sort of carefully making sure that it's pressurized so that it's sticking nicely to my card, and it has that really nice little white frame behind it. And that's no additional material. You're already using a white card base. We're going to go and adhere our stitched frame to our card as well. And next what we'll do is we will decorate our cupcake with some of those silver sprinkles. I probably should have done this before I put the bow on, but in all honesty, that just means it would give me the opportunity to overlap some of the sprinkles with the bow. Why overlap the pretty silver glittery sprinkles? Put them on after, whatever makes the most sense for you. I'm using the little star shape, the circle shape, the sprinkles shape. There's like a bent circle shape as well. There's also a little hexagon. It might be an octagon. I'm sorry I didn't count, but we're getting those all nicely added to the top of our cupcake just for a little bit of extra decoration. Using some large foam squares by Scrapbook.com, I'm going to place these on the back of my cupcake. This is going to help it pop really nicely on our panel. I always use some form of a foam tape, foam squares for my cards because I really like it when my focal images pop. I'm centering my cupcake into that frame and putting it into place. Oh, this is super cute, and we have one last thing that we need to do. I am going to use some clear iridescent embellishments from Pink Fresh Studio along with my Misty Precision Glue Press for the last time to go ahead and put these into place. Now, I'm not showing where each of the ones get placed, but I'm just showing you how I start and how I finish, and we've got our card all completed. Thank you so very much for stopping by the Scrapbook.com YouTube channel today and crafting along with me to create this super sweet and delicious birthday card. You can follow me on Instagram at JustANoteByJustin or subscribe to my YouTube channel at JustANoteByJustin as well. Thank you once again for stopping by. Don't forget that for the best selection, fast shipping, and free inspiration, Scrapbook.com's got you covered. Thank you so very much, you guys. Have a wonderful day and stay crafty. Goodbye.